David, great to see you. First of all, we knew this was coming. It has come. How is this going to impact beef producers in particular?
Well, in fact, it's going to impact the United States and consumers of Big Macs right across the country. The reality is what we export to the United States is lean beef. The United States doesn't produce the quantities that we do to be able to go into that product. So what they're effectively doing, what President Trump is effectively doing, is tariffing his own country because they don't have the supply capacity within the United States to achieve that. So Australia does, and the reality is he's going to push up the prices of Big Macs in the United States. We do import American beef under strict conditions, frozen beef, but we're not going to trade away our biosecurity standards. And while BSE, or mad cow disease, hasn't been found in the United States for over a decade, it's the supply chains in the Americas that still causes concern for us around those biosecurity issues, the dealings with Canada and Mexico in particular, that we can't get certainty of the tightness of their supply chain. But risk assessments are made all the time, and there's been no change to that. And unfortunately, until we can get comfort with that, we're not going to put our beef industry at risk. But we've always predicated our trade on science. That has been how we should do it, and what President Trump also fails to acknowledge and recognise is that they actually subsidise US farmers. Australia actually subsidises their farmers. Of the 38 OECD countries, there's only one country that subsidises their farmers less than us, and that's New Zealand. The United States farmers get a whole lot of subsidies. So I think this is where you need to have a line of communication. You need to be able to talk to President Trump and get him to pick a phone up. But when you can't do that, you can't articulate that he's actually hurting himself and his own people. But he's not looking at this. If he wants to look at it through the lens of reciprocal taxes and subsidies, well, he's failed to acknowledge the subsidies that US farmers get that Australian farmers don't. So if you don't have that lines of communication, and I think what Australians need to ask themselves, who's best to get that? And you only have to look at the lived experience. Anthony Albanese couldn't get a phone call. He couldn't get in the front door of the White House while we're going out the back. And we're going to be comprehensive. We're with the government on this, but we're also going to look and make sure that we're very clear about the actions we'll take as a government, as a new government. Prime Minister Dutton will be over in the United States meeting with President Trump well within the first couple of months. We need to re-engage with our CTPP partners immediately, and as well as making sure that we follow through the protocols of the WTO and make our protests through the appropriate channels. We've respected the rules-based order, and that's what we continue to do, but you need leadership, strong leadership, and being able to take actions with President Trump, and finally, hopefully, able to get a call. Otherwise, if we can't do that, we're no better than anybody else.
Okay, so you say you're going to have better lines of communication with the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself. How would you get him on the phone? Why would it be different than Anthony Albanese? Because he's tried the back door as well, not only with the ambassador, Kevin Rudd, we know the history there, but he even tried to get in a bit of golfing diplomacy, meeting with Greg Norman. I mean, if Greg Norman can't make those personal connections, how are you going to? How is Peter Dutton going to?
Well, it's going to be a relationship reset when you've got our Prime Minister and Ambassador in the United States that's made personal disparaging remarks about the President. There needs to be a reset. There needs to be an opportunity for President Trump to see that there's a reset.
Does reset mean that you would get rid of Kevin Rudd then as Ambassador?
No, we'll work through that, and as Peter Dutton said, is that he would continue to give continuity with Kevin Rudd, but we'll need to work through in making sure that we reset the leadership here in Australia, that the ambassador is that mouthpiece of a new leadership piece here in Australia, and will represent that new view. Not a Prime Minister that's made disparaging comments about President Trump, but to be able to clearly articulate why Australia shouldn't actually have to take any of these tariffs. But also, I think we've got a role to lead here. If we can leverage that position, we should help the world get back to a rules-based order and impress on President Trump that these broader tariffs are not good for the world. This is inflationary, and we should be able to leverage our position to actually have the ear of the President as one of their trusted allies to be able to not just look out for Team Australia, but get the world back to a rules-based order. And that's real leadership, and that's what you need to be able to do, is reset the relationship. And obviously we can't do that with a Prime Minister that's made disparaging comments about President Trump in the past. We need some real strong leadership to get this reset.
Just finally, David, what kind of assistance would you be offering the beef industry to get them through this tough period? We had Anastasia Palaszczuk on that points out that this has come really the worst time for them as well, with all the floods and disasters.
Yeah, well, look, in the immediate part, it's about actually my electorate. We've lost over 150,000 head. So David Crisafulli is looking at bespoke measures, and I asked him to pull out the rule book of the northwest Queensland floods and overlay that into Western Queensland and add things like dog fencing so that we can restock. But I think it is also, this is why decisive action in re-engaging with our trading partners, and particularly the Comprehensive Trans-Pacific Partnership, our trading partners there in re-engaging with them quickly, showing leadership in what we did in forming that trading bloc with like-minded countries to make sure that we not only have a concerted effort in getting us back to a rules-based order, but we actually continue to enrich trade and new markets within each other, and also look to the EU to get a trade agreement there. The world's shifting, we need to shift with it, but we've got an opportunity to lead if we can reset our leadership here in Australia, not just with the United States, but with our other trading partners. It's not just about throwing money, about short-term support. It's about seeing how the markets will shift and being able to take advantage of that, and it's making sure that we re-engage with those trade agreements, and particularly the CTPP that we put in place that the Labor Party said was a waste of time, it can never be done, and we put in place back in 2018-19. That's the sort of leadership and action you need decisively right here, right now.
Okay, I know the short-term monetary lifeline isn't everything, as you just pointed out, but there will be one on offer from you in this campaign?
We'll look through this, and exactly. I mean, it's still very fluid. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of confusion about exactly what is the extent, particularly on beef. But once we get an understanding of that, it's not just about throwing money. It's about understanding the world's changing, taking a leadership role with the United States, but also our other trading partners for those trading agreements that we put in place. 16 of them, but the most important one is that Comprehensive Trans-Pacific Partnership of the 10 nations that will actually add big value to us, working together cooperatively to make sure we reset new markets where we need to. Not just throwing money at the problem, but if we have to in the short term, we'll look at that once we get a full understanding of what President Trump is imposing here.